Hey everyone, I'm AM Showtime, aka Zero Shift from Gilgamesh. In this video, I'll show you how to effectively tank with Warrior and high-end content. Warrior features strong burst windows and an incredibly strong defensive toolkit and self-healing abilities. For these reasons, I highly encourage Warrior players to main tank in order to fully utilize its incredible self-sustain. We'll go over the opener, maintaining your Storm's Eye buff, beast gauge management, and going mad mode with your defensive. Your healers will love you by the end of this one. Let's get started. Now let's talk about your two different combo finishers. First is Storm's Eye. Storm's Eye gives you a buff for 30 seconds called Surging Tempest. This buff increases your damage by 10%, so it's very important you maintain this at all times. Also, using Storm's Eye while your buff is still active will extend your buff timer by 30 seconds to a maximum of 60 seconds. Using this combo gives you 20 beast gauge total, 10 from Maim and 10 from Storm's Eye. Your second combo finisher is Storm's Path. Storm's Path is no longer a potency gain versus Storm's Eye, as both are now 400 combo potency. The reason to use Storm's Path versus Storm's Eye is to fill your beast gauge quicker. This combo gives you a total of 30 beast gauge, 10 from Maim and 20 from Storm's Path. Your AOE combo is Overpower and Mithril Tempest, which is a gain only when used on 3 or more targets. Mithril Tempest also gives you the Surging Tempest buff for 30 seconds and also extends the timer by 30 seconds to a maximum of 60, just like Storm's Eye. This combo also gives you a total of 20 beast gauge. Now let's go over your beast gauge actions. Your two primary actions are Fell Cleave and Decimate. Both cost 50 gauge each. Decimate should be used over Fell Cleave when there are 3 or more targets. Otherwise, use Fell Cleave. Infuriate increases your gauge by 50, and you also have 2 charges. At level 80, this ability enables the Nascent Chaos buff, which changes your Fell Cleave to Inner Chaos and changes your Decimate to Chaotic Cyclone for 30 seconds. Both these new actions still cost 50 gauge, but are more powerful and are guaranteed crit direct hits. Your Infuriate timer decreases by 5 seconds for each use of Fell Cleave, Inner Chaos, Decimate, or Chaotic Cyclone. Let's talk about your off globals. Upheaval and Orogeny both share a cooldown together. Use Orogeny over Upheaval on 3 or more targets. Upheaval is no longer tied to the beast gauge, so just use it on cooldown and under buff. Now our bread and butter. Inner Release. Inner Release lasts for 15 seconds and makes all your beast gauge actions free of cost. Inner Release also gives you 3 stacks of IR, where each stack makes the next GCD a guaranteed crit direct hit, so it's really important you only use Fell Cleave or Decimate here. No Forbidden Tomahawk champs. It also extends your Surging Tempest timer by 10 seconds. Inner Release makes you immune to knockbacks, which is pretty handy for some fights, like P4S during PNAX. Never use Infuriate or Inner Chaos under Inner Release. Those moves are already guaranteed crits, making them a waste of an IR stack. Only use this Forbidden Tech if the fight is literally about to end. Inner Release also grants you Primal Rend ready for 30 seconds, which lets you use Primal Rend. Primal Rend becomes available after Inner Release is activated. It doesn't cost gauge or use a stack of IR. You have 30 seconds to use it, and it is a guaranteed crit direct hit. This ability is badass. It's your strongest action, and it's a spinny Sonic the Hedgehog gap closer. You are, however, animation locked for a short time, and you can only weave 1 OGCD after it. Spend this under buffs. With all those actions out of the way, we can finally go over the opener and the rotation. This opener is pretty much standard across the board. It fits under buffs and flows your rotation well the rest of the encounter. So if you're main tank, I suggest you pull with Tomahawk for consistency. Once you Tomahawk, use your Infuriate to get it on cooldown ASAP. Start with Heavy Swing, Maim, use your Pot, and Storm's Eye. Use your Inner Chaos, Upheaval, and begin your Inner Release. Primal Rend here once buffs are up. Fell Cleave while weaving Onslaught in between each Fell Cleave. Inner Chaos, then your Storm's Path combo. Fell Cleave again, and use your last Inner Chaos. From here, use your Storm's Eye combo to refresh your Surging Tempest. An alternative is to spend another Infuriate or Inner Chaos right before Inner Release. This puts all your hard hitters safely under buffs, but delays your Inner Release by 1 GCD. Useful for a buff like Trick Attack where the timing on the standard opener is very tight, but do not use if you would miss a Fel Cleave under inner release due to downtime. Now let's go over the rotation. Pro tip, we don't have one. Instead, there is a priority system to follow. Follow these key steps. Never drop your Surging Tempest. Refresh your buff with Storm's Eye combo between 7 to 15 seconds left on the timer. Do not overcap your timer. You can only cap at 60 seconds, so do not use Storm's Eye at 31 seconds or more. Use Storm's Path or other GCDs instead. However, use Storm's Eye if the forced downtime would otherwise drop your buff. So instead of having to reapply your buff once the boss becomes targetable again, you can use other hard-hitting actions or build more gauge. Using Storm's Path versus Storm's Eye. Use Storm's Path combo to get more gauge. More gauge equals more Fel Cleave equals more Unga. A helpful tip is to look at your buff timer after your maim. If it is at 7 seconds or less, hit Storm's Eye. If it is 8 seconds or more, use Storm's Path. Remember to keep Upheaval on cooldown and under buffs. It is under a 30-second timer, so using it on cooldown should keep it under buffs, so keep that in mind. Keep Inner Release on cooldown. With the changes in Endwalker, having Inner Release on a 60-second cooldown is a blessing and lines up beautifully with buffs. Only hold Inner Release if downtime would waste it. Nothing worse than seeing your character glowing red while the boss is untargetable. Don't let your onslaught overcap at 3 stacks. If you are about to cap at 3, just use one. It is a DPS loss just to let it sit capped. Spending the remainder of your onslaughts during Inner Release is a good rule of thumb, because more than likely other party buffs are up at that time. Lastly, do not let your Infuriate cap at 2. Similar to the Onslaught rule, except worse, because Inner Chaos is one of your hardest hitting moves. So letting this sit capped at 2 is extremely bad. Only use when you are 50 gauge or less, or you will overcap on gauge. If you have 60 or more gauge and you are about 5 seconds from capping 2 Infuriate stacks, Fel Cleave first, then spend your Infuriate. Warrior rotation is pretty flexible as you've seen. Now let's go over beast gauge management. I know it can be very tempting to just spend your gauge on Fel Cleave as soon as you get 50 every time, but do not do that. You are literally just throwing it away and losing out on free damage. Build it and dump your gauge under buffs, or if you're about to overcap. Remember, Storm's Path combo gives 30 gauge and Storm's Eye combo gives 20. Do some quick math to make sure you do not go past 100 gauge. Basically, just Fel Cleave if your next GCD would make you overcap. Here's a nice tip. Now that Inner Release is 1 minute, a good amount of party buffs are up, so dump your gauge at Inner Chaos all during that period. That pretty much covers all of Warrior's offensive utility. If you were ever wondering why other Warriors were hitting harder than you, it's because they follow this priority system, and now you can too. Now onto what makes Warriors so unique, its incredible defensive toolkit. Warriors' defensives stand out from the other tanks because not only can it mitigate effectively, it features a lot of self-healing actions. Vengeance. This is your 30% mitigation tool that lasts 15 seconds. Not only is this your strongest single self-mitigation ability, but it has a nice perk. It does retaliation damage against physical attacks, meaning in some cases, using Vengeance is completely free DPS. If you are going to do this, however, make sure you do not need it in the next 2 minutes, and use it only if you're taking physical damage for a short period, such as boss autos during the opener. Vengeance will not retaliate for any other kind of damage except physical. Rampart, your standard tank roll cooldown, 20% damage mitigation for 20 seconds. Thrill of Battle. Thrill of Battle increases your HP by 20%. It also increases recovery from healing actions by 20%, which is absolutely insane. Pairing this with your heal from your path combo, Equilibrium, which also affects the heal over time, or Shake It Off, make Thrill of Battle extremely valuable. For some odd reason, this doesn't affect the healing from Bloodwinning at all. You can also pair this with your party's abilities as well. For example, have your Bard use Nature's Min on you to further increase your healing received, and then have the Scholar Allo spread off of you for a disgustingly large shield for the party. Great for extremely hard-hitting raid wides. Equilibrium, a straight up 1200 potency heal that also gives you a heal over time. It's excellent for spot healing in between boss autos or right after tank busters. Bloodwetting. This cooldown is amazing. For 8 seconds, you take 10% less damage, and for every hit your GCDs do, grants you a 400 potency heal each hit, making this extremely powerful in dungeons. For the first 4 seconds, you also gain a bonus 10% damage reduction, totaling for a 20% damage mit. Oh, and it also gives you a small shield. You can also force your heal to crit if you use Inner Chaos, Chaotic Cyclone, or Primal Rend. However, Inner Release Felcleaves are not guaranteed crit heals. Still, the fact that you already have a crit chance for heals is good, but to force a crit heal? Who needs a healer? Nascent Flash. This is Warrior's only helper ability. It places the same effects of Bloodwetting onto a target party member. The good thing about this is you share that healing with the party member, making this great to save a party member in a pinch or to heal both tanks that are taking double auto attacks, such as P3S. Why is this good? Most helper abilities from other tanks don't reap a benefit for themselves, but Nascent Flash benefits you as well as the target. I also have a macro for this, same as my Paladin ones. See the description below. Bloodwetting versus Nascent Flash. This used to be a debate in the previous expansion with Raw Intuition, but that is no longer the case in Endwalker. Use Nascent Flash to help others, use Bloodwetting to mitigate and heal yourself. Holmgang. This is your invuln, preventing your HP from dropping below 1 HP for 10 seconds. It's only on a 4-minute cooldown, the shortest of all the tank invulns. To me, this is what makes Holmgang the best invuln, because you can essentially get multiple uses of it during boss fights. Holmgang can just be used on busters, then you can heal yourself up and use your other cooldowns for autos. This makes mitigation planning completely brain dead. It's also important to note that Holmgang can be activated while targeting an enemy, yourself, or while not targeting anything at all. If you activate it while targeting an enemy, it will bind the target. Most people don't notice this, probably because bosses are immune to this, and when the target dies, Holmgang will end. Why does this matter? Well, if you are targeting the boss and are out of melee range, Holmgang will not activate, which may lead to you awkwardly dying. You can prevent this by having a macro that will always target yourself with Holmgang. Also see the description below. AOE Mitigation. Reprisal. Work with your co-tank here. If you are able to alternate uses, then raid-wide party hits will always have mitigation. Shake It Off. Puts a shield that's 15% of your max HP and a flat heal onto you and the party. The shield also gets stronger if Vengeance, Thrill of Battle, or Bloodwetting is active. However, it will dispel those abilities in the process. I almost always pair this with Bloodwetting because Bloodwetting is already such a short cooldown. It's a free buff for Shake It Off. Also, some tank busters follow up with a raid-wide hit, so timing this to dispel Vengeance or Thrill of Battle after taking a buster will also give a free shield buff for Shake It Off. Pairing your cooldowns. Rotating different pairs of cooldowns for busters is a safe and reliable way to make sure you always have mitigation on a buster, without being afraid of over mitigating and using too many cooldowns, or under mitigating and not using enough. Here are the pairs that I use. I pair Vengeance with Bloodwetting, and I also pair Rampart, Thrill of Battle, and Bloodwetting. These are the two sets I like to rotate in Savage, with 9 times out of 10 will feature tank busters frequently. Equilibrium and Bloodwetting are key in this kit because of spot healing. Bloodwetting, when paired with your burst, can heal up a lot of damage, so take advantage of that. Use these two during auto attack intensive phases or to heal straight back up from a buster. A common mistake is to overheal. Some warriors panic and see their HP drop just a little bit. Using this at about 80% is a waste. Time these wisely and get the most out of your heals, because once your HP starts actually dropping and you do not have these two cooldowns, then your healers become big sad. And that concludes my warrior guide. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. Sorry it took me so long because I'm still trying to learn how to edit. Also, shout out to Sausage Roll, who is currently the rank 1 warrior right now, for helping me out with this and peer reviewing it for me. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know in the comments below if you want Dark Knight or Gunbreaker next. Thanks for watching. See you next time.